You're listening to Lights Camera Latino, the podcast, hosted by Angel Fabian Rivera. Remember to follow us on our social media platforms as Lights Camera Latino and Angel Fabian Rivera. Hola mi gente, welcome to Lights Camera Latino, the podcast. This is a place where we dive deep into the captivating world of entertainment with influential Latinos shaping the industry. My name is Angel Fabian Rivera, and I'm so excited to be back here for another episode. And today on Lights Camera Latino, I'm joined by Ronald Hinton, a queer Afro-Puerto Rican actor, writer, and producer whose work is all about amplifying queer BIPOC stories through bold, community-driven storytelling. Ronald is the creator of Natives, a web series that's already been recognized by platforms like Native Son, Queerty, and Blavity, and screened at the New York Latino Film Festival and Autumn Film Atlanta. Shout out to him. He's also the co-founder of Queer Voices, NYC Film Festival, was named one of Native Son's 101 Black Queer Disruptors, and is an alum of GLAAD's Black Queer Creative Summit, where he's been recognized for reshaping culture and media. Today, we'll talk about his journey, the inspiration behind Natives, and the crowdfunding campaign. Welcome to Lights Camera Latino, Ronald.
Thank you for having me, Angel. I'm excited to be here.
I am so excited because we literally met like a couple of days ago.
Yes, out on film.
This is, and these are the places where you find amazing people, amazing creatives like you. And, I remember I was sitting down hearing your pitch, and you mentioned a show, you mentioned you're Puerto Rican, and that already got my attention. I was like, wait, who's that guy? I gotta meet him now.
No, thank you. I feel like, yeah, especially, and Atlanta, you know more. I don't know if there's I haven't come across the times that I've been there many Puerto Ricans. So it's we gotta stick with each other when we find one another.
Yeah, no, definitely, especially in spaces like that. At a queer film festival, it's so hard to find. First of all, it's hard to find other Latinos, and second, it's even harder to find other Puerto Ricans. So it was very exciting to get to see someone, create projects like you do, and with your background. So, talking about the background, you're Puerto Rican. You were born and raised in New York, right?
Yes. So I'm New Yorican. Majority of my family has been there for a while. Like my great grandma came over to New York when she was 27, so 1940 something, 50 something. So we've been rooted in New York for a while.
Wow. She was part of the West Side Story kind of story, literally.
Yeah, actually. But yeah, in addition to being Puerto Rican, I'm African American on my dad's side. So a blend of cultures that I feel like make up who I am.
I love that. So can we talk about growing up being, mixed? How was that? What challenges did you go through?
Well, I feel like, it is what was it like? It was normal to me because that's the only existence that I've known. But I feel like it was unique in a sense of I grew up primarily with my mom's side, which is my Puerto Rican side. So I feel like there was a lot of culture and stuff like that I was very close to on the Puerto Rican side, not necessarily my Black side. However, and I've created a documentary which discusses some of this either. I think, I love Latinidad so much, but at the same time, there is a lot of anti-Blackness in Latinidad. So having to face some of that, my family loving my skin tone and how tan I am and, how I look, but not necessarily liking my hair, my hair texture, and not knowing what to do with it. And so me kind of being the darkest one on that side, having to figure out what that is. And, sometimes really wondering, am I attractive enough, skin be lighter, having to go through those things. But luckily I had other friends, and other family, and even myself, that I really kind of came to myself and having to remind remind me like, no, you're perfect the way you are, and all of these different customs and cultures really make up who you are.
Mm. Well, I love that because the way I see the work that you do today, it's literally a mirror of that, right? Like you grew up going through this, and then I guess you found your people, you find your tribe, or you found ways in order to love more yourself instead of like listening to what others are saying. But seeing, right, like the projects that you're doing right now, it really showcase that, right? So is that what made you start a career in acting? What brought you to this crazy world?
Actually, I don't think that had much to do with why I started acting. I just started acting because I remember I loved to watch TV with my grandmother, and so we would be watching TV all the time. I'd leave school like the minute the bell rang, so I could go and watch soap operas with her at like 3 o'clock. Yeah, and so I that was something that we did that was a bonding experience for us. But also I just would find myself like mimicking them, like saying the lines
Mm.
that they would, and she would. It makes me laugh because she would like turn to me and she would to me like, "Would you shut up?" Because she's like, "I want to watch the show," and so I just there was something in me that wanted to perform, and I remember my
Mm.
dad asking me when I was about 12 years old, like, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to be on TV," and so
Mm.
he was like, "Well, how do you do that?" And I was like, "I don't know." So I just looked on my phone. Like at the time, it was like a slide up phone. I looked like acting classes in New York, and I saw that they were pretty pricey. So I tried looking for free ones. I found something free that was like close by me, and I was like, "Okay, I just need you to take me to this." And then from there, I got
Wow.
bit by the acting bug, and I, never turned back. I feel like I've been a storyteller since I was a kid, and it's only blossomed from there, from acting to now writing and producing and loving all of those different things.
I love that because I always say when you don't see yourself represented, you create your own spaces. And I think that's what you've been doing, right? Because you started as an actor, then you started developing more and more and more skills and started producing, started writing. How did you make that jump of like from acting to just like, you know what, I'm just gonna write something and do it?
Yeah, so I never expected myself to be a writer. It was really my last year in college. I studied acting at Pace University. I was part of their first graduating class of this new major called
Wow.
Acting for Film, TV, Voiceovers, and Commercials, which is exactly what I wanted to do because I've always loved film, I've always loved TV. I love theater so much, but again, I always would watch so many TV shows with my grandmother. And so as an actor, my goal was always to be a lead on a TV series. And so in my final year of acting class, they surprised us as we came in. They were like, "You know what? This is your acting class, but you're going to be writing for the most part." And we were like, "What?"
Oh, wow.
So they were like, "But don't worry, you'll be acting in each other's pieces, but we want to teach you
Wow.
to write your own opportunities, so you're not just
Yeah.
waiting around," which I'm super grateful for them doing because as I started writing things, I was like, "Whoa, I'm not that bad." And then I was like, "Whoa, I actually have a lot to say." And I didn't think that I did because before then, I feel like I had seen myself
Mm.
reflected physically in media, but not necessarily all of the intersections that I exist in. So like being black, Latino, being gay, and I feel I have masculine traits, I have feminine traits. Like, and on TV, it felt like, and it still does sometimes. You have to choose one of those. Like
Mhm.
Latinos rarely look like me on TV. And then like if you're gay on TV, you either have to be super macho or super effeminate. And there's not like a blending of those, but there's so many people who exist like me, who look like me. And so as I continue to write and bring stories where I was like, oh, like I could actually act in this, like why don't things like this exist in media? That just
Mhm.
drove me to want to create more and more. And I wrote the first scene of my series Natives, and then that inspired me to continue writing from there.
Wow. So you wrote that first scene when you were in college?
So I wrote that first scene actually the year I got out of college or after, so
Uh-huh.
2018. But I wrote my first web series in college. That was with my best friend. We were RAs, and so I wrote we wrote a series about us being RAs and like just us going through a lot of like a bunch of shenanigans because we would do a lot of like really funny stuff, some stuff that we shouldn't have been doing. And that was like the first time that I felt like I saw myself fully represented in
Uh-huh.
something. And then the year after that is when I wrote the first scene for Natives. And then in 2020 is when I actually wrote the first pilot of Natives, which is
Okay.
so much.
Wow. So 2018. So wait, shout out to your college because I think that's so important. First of all, I
Yes.
think every actor should know how to write themselves and understand themselves. And by writing, you can understand all that, and you can understand other things, right? Because I always say like actors, the more you learn, the better you're gonna become.
Hmm.
I always say learn lighting, learn producing, learn props, learn wardrobe, learn everything that you can, because you're gonna have even more respect to the work that you do.
Hmm.
Uh, so 2018, you write that, and then 2020, why 2 years later you said, you know what, I wrote that thing 2 years ago. Let me go back to it and let me just refresh it and do a pilot about it.
Yeah, well, in 2018, it was just a scene between the two main love interests at the time. They were in a public housing building, which is what I grew up in, and there was just like a little spark of romance that you see between them. But
Mm,
I wasn't sure where to take it from there. I just knew that I loved it because one, I grew up seeing negative depictions of public housing almost all my life. I grew up in New York City, so I grew up seeing New York represented everywhere, but not the New York I really knew, and not the New York that has really shaped me. The New York that shapes culture. That's the reason people want to come here for, you know. And so I was ashamed from being from public housing because that's what media fed to me. And so I wrote this, and I didn't see queerness in public housing either, but we exist. And so I was like, this is
mm,
interesting. I've never seen queerness in public housing. I've never seen it just like people living. It's always them coming to get arrested or using drugs or something like that. So I was like, I like this. I think I have something, but I don't know where to take it. So I just left it. And then in 2020, during the George Floyd protests, the Black Lives Matter movement at the time, I was really like, how do I make a bigger impact for my community? I was going to protests. I was going and like I was on social media sharing like messages and the calls to actions and things like that, but I felt like I wasn't doing enough. And so I was really beating myself up like, how do I do more? And then I remembered, I
mm,
was like, well, I'm a storyteller, and film is probably the most powerful tool to shaping how people view other communities and cultures. And so I can reshape how people are thinking about my community through stories. And so I was thinking like, what stories do I have already, or what's something that I would really feel passionate to tell? And I remembered I had this scene that I wrote 2 years ago. So I then saw a pilot competition like a few days after. And I was
mm.
like, oh, I don't have much to do right now because it was the pandemic. We were supposed to be inside, and I was going to protest, but it's like, I don't have much to do. And I'm someone who likes to be productive. So I'm going to write a pilot. And I had never done it before, but I wanted to challenge myself, and I wanted something to do. And so I took that scene, I started carving out like the world and these characters and what that looked like. And then I wrote a 42-page pilot. I submitted it to the competition.
Wow.
I didn't get into the competition, but I got feedback. And I remember the feedback was, it said, keep going. The world you're building is really colorful. And that to me just lit a fire in me. I was like, oh, wow, like somebody recognizes this and I like it too. So I am going to keep going. And so I started sharing it with people, and then they gave me their response, and the response was usually good, especially like my closest people who grew up in New York as well. Because first and foremost, this series is for New Yorkers. I wrote it to reflect, it's my love letter to New York. then it's like to like queer New York, and to then it kind of reaches a broader audience. So like I think anybody can see themselves in this series, but it's meant for my queer New Yorkers, especially those who grew up in like public housing and things like that, because I really want us to be able to see ourselves in a positive light.
Wow, I love that. I love all of that, and to get also the feedback and give you, the boost that you need, because sometimes, by not getting a feedback, sometimes that makes us feel like, oh, what, everything's that bad. Is it that bad, right? But you got that, and you got the motivation that you needed in order to go and follow what you wanted and what you know about. And they always talk about, right, like write about what you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you did, and you're telling a story that's close to you. So how would you describe, what would you say Native is all about?
Yeah, Natives follows a group of unapologetic queer Native New Yorkers navigating adulting in the projects of New York City. It is a story about friendship. It's a story about returning to your roots. Really, the main character, Izzy, he leaves New York City because he feels like where he comes from is holding him back from his dream. So he goes to LA. He is unable to really make it in LA. It's difficult. He's running out of money. So he's forced to come back to New York City, to the building specifically that he feels like has been holding him back and has like, it is what he's so different from. And he's been trying to run from that to make himself feel different. And upon coming back throughout the season, he has to reintegrate himself into his community, mend friendships that he just left because he left without telling anybody and without even communicating with them. So he dropped his friends, his family, and now he has to come back and face those people. And ultimately, he learns that this place that he came from, that he's been trying so hard to run from, is the place that shaped him. It's why he is so bold and fearless to be able to leave and do these things, why he's a dreamer. But also the community, that's the community that's always been there for him. The other community that he's tried to be a part of or assimilate to, they weren't there for him, but this is the community that will always be there for him. And so it's about returning to your roots and really remembering that where you come from doesn't have to define where you go.
I love that. You mentioned something about community in there. He has people around him, right? So where did you got that inspiration of all the characters are around him and that community that he has in New York?
Oh, well, that is what public housing is all about. I think that it really is community. In these buildings, generations exist here. My grandmother, the apartment I'm sitting in, that I'm speaking to you from, my great grandmother lived here for 45 years. Wow. And so it is, like generations are raised here, and you look out for one another. And, like there's certain times where a parent can be upstairs in their apartment, but they know that their friend is downstairs. So they're texting their friend that, oh, my kid is coming down. Just make sure to keep an eye on them, and all the kids know each other because they've grown up together, and they like watch over each other. So it's like, if sometimes this is where you have your fake cousins, like that's my cousin. That's not really my cousin, but that's my cousin because I know them all my life, So it's like that type of community that is so special in these spaces that a lot of other places don't have, especially like if you go to a building that is, a bunch of transplants or something like that they don't have that same level of community, that they know this space. They know the struggle it takes to live in New York. They know, like the struggle it is to live in this neighborhood too. I grew up on the Upper West Side, which is a very wealthy neighborhood, but the building that I grew up in and the people, they are not very wealthy, So we have to figure out like how to live the best lives we can, while still on the budget that we have.
Wow. No, I that's pretty, the way that you're putting that experience that you've lived through and you stamping it in this show, it's amazing, because you're telling, again, what you're saying, like you're sharing a story that people don't talk about that much. And I don't think enough. I don't think they don't talk about it, point blank, right? And you're showcasing that through art, and that's what film does, and that's what art does in its own, in its fullest. You know, you represent the reality of lives out there, and you're doing that. And it just reminds me also of like how Latinos are in general, right? Like we tend to create that community within our neighborhood, or within the people that we, you know, that are close to us. We create that community. I remember growing up and asking for adobo you know, from my neighbor, right? Like that's what is, and that's what you're telling me, that your story, it's similar to that, right? That you guys were there for each other, and you guys grew up knowing each other, and probably like you said, you took care of each other, and that's what the show is also showcasing.
Definitely. And you know, it's been, again, I agree with you. That's the beauty of art, and that's why I love art so much, because this project has been so healing for me. You know, again, I said I was ashamed from being from the projects, from public housing, but upon writing this and like really questioning, because the main character is really inspired by me. I didn't go to LA, but I went to a predominantly white institution. And I feel like I try to assimilate into that. I saw, you know, some of the friends that I had, their parents had lake houses and things like that. And I was like, well, why doesn't my family have that? Are we not doing good enough? Should we be doing more? You know, and I was like judging my family, my community based off of people and what they had, which I had to realize, like, you know, they didn't choose the situation they exist in. Not always. So it was a healing journey for me to like question when writing, why is this character struggling with this? What do they feel? What do they need to overcome this? And it helped me learn those things about myself.
Wow, this is why I always talk about art is healing, you know, and people forget about that. Even to the person that's writing it, it's healing. Yes, it heals the audience, because that's what it's all about too, right? It's about, you know, at least 1% of something you're gonna understand and get it, but it's also healing you, and it's making you a better human being at the end of the day. Ronald, you wrote this in 2020. When did you decided to shoot it?
Oh yeah, there's hopefully I'm not confusing anyone, but this project has been over the past like 7 years if you include when I wrote Seed in 2018. So, you know, I wrote that first Seed in 2018. I wrote the pilot in 2020, and then from there, 2021, I crowdfunded. So that was the first crowdfunding campaign that I had. We raised $20,000. It was a success. And then from there, I said, you know what? It was supposed to be a pilot, but I said, you know what? I want to make a series, because I feel like I have more to say than just this one pilot. And so from there, I created a writer's room where I had 3 writers, me and 2 other writers who were both queer and from New York. We also had a writer's room, and we spent about 5 months in the writer's room really writing this series. We created 7 episodes. I try to model it after a real writer's room, because I wanted to treat this as any other TV project, just because I was like, well, the only difference is I don't have the budget that, you know, like an ABC show has, but otherwise I'm going to try and treat it as official as these other shows run their writers' rooms or productions. And so I think we did a pretty good job with that. Like each episode is written by a different writer, or we alternated in writing. So I wrote 3 of them, and the other 2 writers wrote a few as well. And it was such a collaborative and fun experience. That was probably one of the best experiences, because that's the most creative experience. That's when we're building the world where like anything is possible. And so I loved that writer's room so much. But that was 2022. 2023, we actually filmed the first 2 episodes. And then we actually had to shoot an extra day because we didn't get some shots. And so shooting that extra day took all of our post-production budget. So we were at a standstill from 2023 to 2024 when I was just trying to outreach like crazy. I found this connection at this school, and I just pitched it to them. And I was like, might you have any funds to help us? Like, this is a product we created, we're stuck. And they were like, I kind of like this. Yeah, maybe we can find something. And they gave us our post-production money. And then we went through post the summer of 2024, released it in fall 2024, the first two episodes, and it's been out. It's been out, yeah, since then. So about a year now, because I believe it premiered October 13th last year. So now we're at the next phase where we have 5 additional episodes, and we're kind of restarting that phase where we need to crowdfund and get the money to shoot the remaining episodes, and then kind of do the same thing again, releasing it. Hopefully this time we don't have to shoot any other extra days, and like our post production is locked in.
You learn from the first time, right?
Absolutely. Oh my god.
But this is wow, like I love that you're creating a space not only for actors but also for the people behind it, right? Like writers normally, when we start in this journey, we don't get this many opportunities to be in the room and really be part of like creating a world, right? Because when you create a TV show, you have to create a whole world. It's everything that lives inside lives inside. And I love that you took that very serious in the terms of like, let me bring people, because also you have to open your mind, because it's not only now your experience, now you're inserting other people's experiences in there, and you're creating this potion, right? You're creating this thing that's gonna go get out there, and somebody else is gonna be like, oh wait, I also understand that. Oh wait, this other experiences, because you're letting people add from what they know. And I think that is so important, because we forget about that sometimes. We forget about, even though we are both Puerto Ricans, we don't have the same experiences. We have so many things to talk about that's so different, and we are going to add something valuable to the story.
100%. That's the biggest thing I knew. I said, I was pretty adamant, like I could have written it by myself, but I didn't feel like that served the story, because the story is just not about me. I'm creating a whole plethora of characters, and I'm only one queer person in New York, like, and so there's other people who have different experiences as well. We have shared experiences, but they have different experiences. And so their experiences can inform these other characters. And so that's why I said it was one of the best times, because we would talk about certain things in the writer's room where it's like, oh, like, I think this person would do that. And then they would be like, no, like nobody would do that. And I would be like, well, over here on my side, like and because I was from Manhattan, one of my other writers is from Queens, another one is from the Bronx. So we get those different boroughs too. That's like they have different cultures. And so it was just a really amazing time to be able to like come together. And also, if we felt like we were all, none of them would do the same thing, how can we make a decision or blend them? Or maybe that person leans more towards this type of vibe, like a Bronx vibe, so that, I think being able to blend in those experiences was really beautiful, because it really helped create these full real characters that are three-dimensional, and not just like caricatures or anything. Like, these feel like real people because we've spent time thinking about them. We've brought in other elements to really shape who they are.
Wow. Well, kudos to that, and thank you for giving the space to other writers and other creators to give a little bit about themselves too. How was the process of finding the right actors to tell this story?
Oh, the process of casting was interesting. So we originally were going to shoot a proof of concept in 2020. So a decent amount of my actors, maybe like 5 or so, have been with the project since 2020, because that's when we originally cast them. And I'm so grateful to them, because a lot of them are still on the project to this day. And they've shown the support, and they believe in the project. And so that to me is beautiful, and I don't take it lightly, because to be with something for 5 years, that sometimes there's points where you didn't know what was going to happen, but they decided to still come back and support it. And we don't have a big budget, so we can't always pay them for the rehearsals we do, things like that, but yet they still come because they really believe in the project and they believe in the story. So that is beautiful to me. But we used like backstage, we used actors access, we used a mix of like open calls on Instagram, because the series is very specific. You know, while it's universal in its elements, it's very specific. It's about queer native New Yorkers. And native New Yorkers have a very specific way that they move, that they talk, you know, a vibe. And so we wanted to have it as real as possible.
Mm.
And I think I'm really proud of the casting that we got, because while not all of the actors were natives to New York, a lot of them have lived in New York for a long time. They grew up adjacent to New York, and they were able to like tap in to that to really represent. And also, you know, they're actors, so studying, doing the work so that they can do it justice and do these characters justice. And so that was a mixture of how we casted. But a lot of it was backstage, actors access, a lot of watching auditions, a lot of virtual kind of chemistry reads, and then like in-person rehearsals. And we've had to, because we cast this in 2020, and it's now 2025, or in 2023 when we shot, there has been some characters who've changed because either the actor could no longer do it no more. Otherwise, we maybe found other actors who fit the role a little bit better. So it was a journey, but I'm really excited with my cast. I love my cast so much. I feel like they truly are the perfect cast to embody these characters. And that has been a lot of the reception too. Like, people love our cast, which it makes me so happy, because a lot of them are New Yorkers, and majority of the crew are queer and native New Yorkers. And so that also helps, because we're, you know, if an actor doesn't necessarily know, or there's not certain characteristics that they're bringing, a lot of us can be like, oh, well, maybe do this or try this. And like, we all add in that so that it feels natural and it feels real and it feels true to the New York that we're trying to display.
Wow. So you started from this kid watching soap operas to become an actor, to become a writer, to become a producer, casting director. That is everything, you know? What has been the response from audiences? Because I know you have, the show is right now live on YouTube, the first 2 episodes, right?
Yes, you can watch the show now on YouTube if you go to Shared Soil Productions, or you type in Natives the series. You should be able to find both episodes. But the reception has been gorgeous. I think that's one of my other favorite parts of doing this. You know, I think as a creative, as a filmmaker, sometimes it's so nerve-wracking to share your work, because you're going through moments of like, oh my God, this is gorgeous. I love this so much. And then the next hour, you're like, I hate this. This is the worst thing ever. And you're like, and for me, I really want to represent my city. So it's like, is this repping it enough? Is this like, are the people going to vibe with this? Are they going to be like, this is not New York, you know? Like, but I had to take myself out of that. And luckily, I'm good with combating any overthinking. And I can usually be like, all right, take a breath, chill out. Do you like this? If you like it, that's what matters. If you feel like you're telling a story that you intended to tell, that's what matters. And so in doing that, released it confidently, and we got such an outpour of love. You know, comments constantly asking where's the next episode, comments saying the characters they identify themselves with, comments thanking us for creating this. I was actually at the GLAAD Black Queer Media Summit about 3 weeks ago. And I wasn't at this specific panel, but somebody came up to me later and they said how they were at a panel talking about representation. And someone in the panel said how they didn't fully see themselves in any media until they saw this show called Natives. And I was like, no fucking way. Oh, I don't know if I should be able to. That is genuinely crazy. And for me, for my art to be able to have that impact for somebody who maybe they're not in New York, you know, maybe they're in like Michigan or Arkansas or Alabama, you know, but they're dealing with some of the similar themes or vibes, to really be able to see themselves reflected in something. That to me is beautiful, because while art is healing, art can also be life-saving, you know? And so I just want to create work that people feel like they can resonate with, and really like that explores all of the nuances and the vastness of our community as queer, Black, brown, Latino, Latine people. And I'm proud that
I
it does that.
Yeah, no, I'm loving this because I totally agree with everything that you're saying, and somebody's watching you literally and talking about your project at a panel. So that's, and that is why you want to continue telling the story, and that's why you launched the Seed&Spark campaign that's out right now. In order to do how many episodes you want to do right now?
So this Seed&Spark campaign for $50,000 is to fund the next 2 episodes. So episodes
Two
3
episodes.
and 4, yes. We have a bigger like fundraising goal that we're aiming to do. And we have different strategies for that so that we can get all 7. But this public crowdfunding campaign is for episodes 3 and 4.
So how can people donate?
Yeah, so you can go to nativestheseries.com. The crowdfunding campaign is now live. We are using Seed&Spark. So nativestheseries.com will direct you straight to the Seed&Spark platform. We have about 25 days now to raise about $45,000 more. So it's ambitious, but this project has always been about community. It's been about showcasing the community in an authentic way, but the community has also carried this project from the beginning. We wouldn't be here without the initial crowdfunding campaign that everybody poured into and shared, and fought so hard to make sure that we would get that money. And then next, when we released it, the community showed up for us and liking it and commenting and talking about how it resonated with them. And so now it's about community again in terms of having that support so that we can bring to life the remaining episodes.
Wow, I love that. Ronald, where do you want to see the show next? Like, what's the goal from like 5 years now? How do you want to see, or how do you see the show?
Oh, so 5 years from now, listen, I truly would love for Natives to be on a streaming network and in our 3rd to 4th season, like Amazon
Yes.
Prime, maybe a Max or something where it just is able to really amplify the voice. Showtime, Stars, networks that give some more freedom for especially queer and like Black and brown creators to really tell their stories in as free of a way as possible. That is my goal for where this series is. My short-term goal right now is just finishing the remaining 5 episodes, because the first 2 episodes I wrote, the next 2 are written by my other writers, and so I really want to be able to give them that ability to see their writing come to life visually. So the next 7 episodes, I would love to create that proof of concept and then create the show at a larger scale.
Wow, when you're doing it, people think shows happen, the night before, and then you decide to shoot it, and that's it. They just come out. Woo. No, it takes years. Like, you started your first scene 2018, if you count that too, 2020, 2022, 2025, and you're still here, and you're only growing from now. But it takes time. And that's what people don't understand about this industry. And that's why I always like to tell people here that it takes time. Like, Beyonce didn't become Beyonce, because what it is, because she had a great voice. It took time. It takes time.
Worked hard, yeah, to master her craft, and I agree. It's the same. It doesn't feel like 7 years, but also it does. Like, that's like a really long amount of time to be working on something. And for 5 years, again, I only have 2 episodes right now. And so that is crazy, but I'm grateful to my team, my producers like Brittany and Darnell, who have been alongside me the past 5 years. A lot of my cast who have been beside me from the past 5 years. We've grown into like actual genuine friends because of this project. And it's beautiful when you find your people, find your collaborators, And especially when those people believe in the project as much as you do. Like, I, without a doubt, know that every single person who's a part of this still believes in it just as much as I do and wants to see it come to life just as much as I do. And it's something special and really different when you have that energy.
Yes. So if you're hearing this right now, you have to go to nativetheseries.com and check that crowdfunding, share it, because sometimes if you don't even have something to donate there, you share it, someone's gonna see it. Watch the show as well on YouTube, subscribe, right? Comment there, make them understand that you are listening and you are being part of this whole universe. Something that really lets this show stay going is by having the audience participate, by having the community that you create, in front of the TV. So we have to support each other. And also, I always tell Latinos, I always say, this is our community. Let's support our stories, because that's the only way they're gonna stay out there. And that's why sometimes people say like, oh, I don't see myself represented this and that. Okay, but what are you doing in order to change that? And you are doing it right now by sharing your story the way that you're doing it.
Yes, and I think that's something I was gonna say as well. Like, a lot of people say they want to see themselves reflected, or they want more diversity, but it's also like, this is the chance to actually do it. We have to actually pour in, because the mainstream media is not allowing us to tell our story. So we have to come together collectively to do this. And so, by contributing $25, 15, 50, 20,000, if you have it, like it,
yeah.
it makes a difference, and it makes these kind of products actually possible. And without us doing it, like, people have that same excuse to be like, oh, well, nobody wants to see it. There's not an audience for it. So we have to be that audience, and we have to bring ourselves together and like collectively fund these projects. Anytime that I see a crowdfunding campaign that I feel like I resonate with, I try and give at least something. Again, even if it's $10, like something, because that adds up. And also in a platform like Seed&Spark, where you have to raise 80% of your goal in order to keep anything. If we raise less than 80% of our goal, which is 40,000, we don't keep anything. So if we raise $36,000, we don't keep any of it. So we need the support.
There it is. The support these stories, they're so important, especially in the times that we're living today. Ronald, what do you hope audiences walk away with after watching Natives?
I hope that everyone walks away with, if you have an idea that you want to tell, if you have a story that you feel like you want to share it. Because one, share it for yourself, and then you don't know how that's going to impact other people. This project came from me just wanting to reflect my story and the people that I knew and loved, and it's taken on a life of its own, and it's no longer just for me, it's for so many other people. And that to me is so powerful and so moving, and it really inspires me to continue creating, because I love that feeling. I love being able to have someone be like, oh wow, that's me. That's a special moment. I feel like that is so nice to be able to see ourselves, especially when we rarely get to see ourselves reflected in our entirety.
There it is. Well, thank you, Ronald, for sharing that. I think it's beautiful, and I think it's so needed. And I haven't watched the show, but I'm gonna sit down and watch it now after all this conversation, because I think it really gave me more of what I already was expecting a lot, because I remember you talking about this at the festival, but now it just made me even watch it more. Thank you, Ronald, for sharing your story and helping others heal. We talk about healing here, and I think that's very important. What you're doing, you're healing yourself, and you're helping others navigate through whatever they're going through. Again, everyone, let's support these stories with whatever you can, how much you can. This is the moment to do it. This is the moment. So don't wait, because these stories, the only way they're gonna come alive is by supporting them. It's not easy to make this type of project. Money is, they say money is not, but money is important to make this stuff. It is important. It is part of it.
Expensive medium. Wow.
Yep, there it is. Ronald, before we finish here, I always like to ask my guest, what advice do you give to those young artists who are starting out in the industry, especially queer and BIPOC artists?
For me, I think it's really just trust yourself and trust the stories that you want to tell. And whatever is burning inside you, just share it. I think that sometimes we can get, as artists in general, so in our heads about certain things. Is this what people want to see? Are people going to resonate with it? But as long as it's something that you feel like is something you need to tell, if you feel like, oh, I cannot go to sleep, or I could not continue living my life. My life would never feel fulfilled if I did not tell this. If there's something that's constantly coming to you, like write it out, share it, because you never know how it's gonna land with people. You never know what it's gonna do for yourself, and how it can maybe help or contribute to the stories about our communities. So just trust yourself and constantly share your story.
There it is. You could have said it better. Ronald, how can people follow your journey and also Native's journey? And also, well, we talk about how they can support the campaign, but say it again.
Yeah, sure. So you can follow me on Instagram at Ronald Thomas Hinton. You can follow Natives at Natives the Series. And then you can contribute to Natives at nativestheseries.com.
There it is. Ronald, thank you so much for being part of this episode. I enjoy so much talking about you, talking about your journey, and talking about Natives. I think it's an important story that everyone out there should take a look at it, right? Should sit down and understand, because sometimes it's not even about what you go through, but it's understanding what other people go through. And I think that's the only way we can understand this world in a better way.
And empathize.
So thank you again. Yeah, that's it. That's what it's all about. So thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you everyone for listening to another episode of Lights, Camera, Latino. Remember to follow us on Instagram and in YouTube and Spotify and all the streaming platforms as Lights, Camera, Latino. And I always like to end the podcast by saying this phrase that says, when life knocks you down, levántate con más fuerza, keep fighting. Hasta la próxima. This was Lights, Camera, Latino, the podcast with Ronald.
Thank you, Angel.